Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Neil for a very special discussion, a spoiler discussion. We are going to be talking season 2 of Peacemaker, which has now finished airing worldwide, I guess we can say. Unlike the first season, where there was a wildly different release date window on that one. Didn't help Creature Commandos, though, but we'll get to that later on. But before we start talking this, Neil, how are we doing today?
I'm good. Thank you very much for getting me on for this. I'm glad we get to circle back on our discussion on Peacemaker and round it out. Now we've seen the rest.
Yes. So I was going to bring this up, but I get to do it even quicker now. Thank you. I was very lucky to be invited on Get Your Comic Con's podcast to talk the first 3 episodes of Alien Earth and the first 5 episodes of Peacemaker, I think, from memory. Yeah. I've got to thank you for that because I didn't plan on watching Alien Earth weekly. And that became my favorite weekly watching show of the year after Andor, I need to clarify. I don't count this because I saw 5 episodes in one batch. So, and that was a lot of fun. And we spoke a lot about Peacemaker. And it was great because we kept it spoiler-free, but we were able to have a detox of sorts without getting into it. And one of our big discussion points was, what are those last 3 episodes going to be? And we get to talk about those 3 plus the episodes we've seen and everything in between. So people watching at home, please do comment your thoughts on Peacemaker below. If you're watching live, spoilers, you can talk about them, whatever you want. Your thoughts on the DCU, the future of Peacemaker, the future of Superman, because we've got Man of Tomorrow, which has now been announced. I'm terrified I'm going to call it Man of Steel by mistake at some point on the stream, and that will set some people off.
Trigger warning.
It absolutely... That 2 months later, by the way, maybe then we'll have a chat about the DCU at the end, or probably in between. But we had you on for the Superman spoiler discussion, and we were glowing. And the film performed very successfully. And we're here sort of, we're here talking Peacemaker, but we will be allowed to sort of reflect on Superman because Peacemaker was in Superman. Superman wasn't in Peacemaker, but somebody was, which we'll get to as well. So people, we really are doing spoilers. So do not watch any further at this point in time if you haven't. But before we kickstart,
you really don't care about us going deep into everything before you've seen it.
There'll probably be some people online who would. I've got friends, to be fair. I've got 1 or 2 friends that don't care if stuff gets spoiled. They enjoy reading about stuff, which I kind of get. But they're not into things in the way we are, like into certain. It's more of a generic. Whereas I think, without stereotyping, there'll be certain people who want to read everything about something without seeing it to form an opinion, to claim they've seen it. That's something I've seen more in the last 5-10 years online.
Yeah.
I thought this happened. Well, no, it didn't. Context. Well, it didn't. But
I've got friends, a few friends, and I'm always really cagey with how I respond, and sometimes I will make things up. But I've got a few friends that as soon as they know I've left a screening or know I'm going to a screening or something, or that I'm about to watch something, they will message and be like, right, give me every single thing. Who's in it that we don't know about? What happens in it that we don't know about? And I'm just like, really? Wait until you've watched it. Like, enjoy it. Enjoy the roller coaster.
Yeah, and I think Peacemaker has that. And we get to, off the bat, I know we're going back a couple of years now. Very briefly, your thoughts on season 1 for our viewers, because they know you as the DC guy, but we've never had the chat on our channel, at least.
No, I don't think we didn't talk about Peacemaker on your channel, did we? So I really enjoyed season 1. I thought it was a great way to continue the kind of world that he began in Suicide Squad. I thought it was a nicely different version of DC than what we were seeing in the films that they were trying to cobble together in a universe. Because I think Gunn does that connectivity really, really well without having to make much effort to do it. I really enjoyed the tone of it. And I was one of the many people, he says, wearing a Peacemaker t-shirt, that was surprised by how much I liked the character in Suicide Squad, and then cared enough to watch the show and got to like the character even more from watching that. And I really like the supporting cast as well. So I have very little critiques of the first season because I think it was just a real fun surprise, which arrived at a time where there wasn't a lot of great stuff happening in film and TV for the studio.
Yeah, I think that's a key part as well, is to, although we're looking at it in the DCU now, it got to the DCU, which is not going to happen to a lot of things. And even off the bat, talking spoilers, we get to talk about how the opening catch up in a
Actually,
very
brilliant idea.
way. George Lucas did. That's what I always call it. He went back and he changed some things. He altered the canon. Guess what? He runs the studio. He can do that, and it absolutely makes sense that the Justice Gang were at the end of what would have been season 1. It's a different multiverse, we can say, without needing to get into the multiverse debacle. But I think at this point in time, the general audience is conscious of multiverses. I think in the year 2025.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wasn't it? Alien concept 10 years ago, but I don't think anymore. I think most people really now understand the bare basics. And I probably think a lot of people wouldn't have rewatched season 1 where they noticed the word Justice League swapped with Justice Gang in the flashback too.
I know a few people that didn't notice.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it straight. I can't remember if I messaged you immediately, but I definitely messaged you at some point after watching episode 1. Like, have I missed something? Like, I'm sure something's different. Like, I'm sure it wasn't called this before. I was like, but I didn't rewatch it, so it's kind of on me.
Yeah. But then now, I think that's also a testament to just how subtle it is and how easy it's thrown in there, and it's not making a big deal of anything. It's not trying to over-egg the fact that there was this other thing before and that we're now in this new thing. It was just simply a case of the events happened in a very similar manner. However, because we're now in this universe, this is the moment that's slightly different. It's just so subtle. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that really sets up where the season's going. If I'm totally honest, that a big discussion point was obviously post Superman. How are they going to put these Peacemaker in the canon? You had a cameo in Superman, and it did a good job of that. And kind of my thoughts heading into season 2, because I'd avoided the trailers, which was something I've got. It's much easier to do for TV than it is for film, if I'm totally honest. The first 5 episodes I got to see early, like yourself, so very lucky with that. And I'd like to say, in terms of quite respectful, I didn't see any leaks past that point, as in not for episode 6 to 8, but no one was really spoiling the first 5, and I think they let the audiences catch up.
Yeah.
Which weekly on a viewing, people seem to really enjoy. I'd see a lot more memes as the weeks went by. I think to once again reflect the fact that it's better for weekly releases than dumping it all at once on Netflix, because whilst there are successes with that format, I really do feel, without having the data, I think the momentum shift has now changed, that whilst Netflix are getting big hits of certain shows, because it's all dropping at once, now they're making everything split in 2 or in 3, like Stranger Things. And they're losing momentum with each show. Wednesday, which was one of the biggest first seasons they had, no one's talked about season 2. And they split it in 2, and then again it happened and it carried on. And obviously Stranger Things is going to be huge, but I've really started to think now that the industry is realised, okay, weekly is better. Like
it's funny though, because it's like the whole like cyclical nature of it is so funny. It's the fact that now, like on Prime, if you don't pay extra, you have adverts, and I'm like, well, now Prime is just getting Sky from the 90s.
Yeah,
it is so different than when I was a kid and we suddenly got Sky and we went from 4 TV channels, soon to be 5, to having all the Sky channels. When you first got streaming, it was like, oh, this is awesome, because now I'm watching TV, but there's no ad breaks. But now there's ad breaks, and unless you pay more.
Yeah, and I think the worrying thing of that is the studios, they all did we're not upping our prices. We're upping the prices if you don't want adverts, which is a different service. And I don't think I've ever been called what's the shill, the Disney shill insult, one of my favorites. I haven't had Disney Plus for about a year and a half. Ironically, I got the first year free because I was at an event, not a press event, as a fan of something else. But I'm not paying £12.50 a month for a studio that has gone on record say we're making less things for the streaming service now. Yeah. Which, why would I pay over 50% more than what I paid 5 years ago when they had stuff coming out every month? So we're in a weird time for streamers. We're in a weird time for mergers. Yeah. Especially the discussion on Edison and Paramount buying out Warner Brothers next year, which is on the table.
A bit quiet now on that front.
There was an article 2 days ago, which is quite big.
Was there? I've not seen it.
They are, I know we're talking Peacemaker, but I don't mind saying this. I forgot the name. The 2 studio heads who they wanted to sack back in March, who they didn't sack, They've both now been rewarded with new contracts given the year Warner Brothers has had. And the Deadline report also reckons that the Edisons won't want Zaslav involved after the purchase, but they reckon Zaslav might not want to be part of it, but he might be given some like obligatory board seat for the merger or transition thing. Like, this is in process, but it seems like it's heating up for next year, which is interesting because DC is obviously a huge part of Warner Brothers. They're moving their HQ to London. We're getting multiple shows and films over the coming years.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd be affected as such, but no one knows how mergers go in any franchise.
Nothing's ever certain, is it?
No, and it kind of makes it not daunting over Peacemaker, but it feels like DC's got a bit of stability, and I think Peacemaker Season 2 has been a big part of that. They're bringing in things from before, and if I sort of talk about the story as a generic, I've not got an IMDb plot synopsis. I've done something more embarrassing. I've got Wikipedia. Because I was sat like, what is the outright plot of Season 2? Like, how can I say that they're all a little bit more depressed this time around? And the official description is, the season continues the story of jingoistic vigilante Chris Smith, who finds an alternate dimension where his father and brother are still alive, and the family together is a highly regarded superhero team. That's actually the best description for this Season 2 I could come up with. Again,
I read that word and I went, "What is that? A real word?" But it is.
I thought that, yeah.
By extreme patriotism, especially in the form of aggressive or warlike foreign policy. Jingoistic.
Wow. Season 1 Peacemaker, maybe, or Suicide Squad, maybe not Season 2. But that's safe to say on the story, and I guess we can talk about it now because we were very explicitly not allowed to talk about it, not through you, through Warner Brothers and HBO. That the big plot point would be that Chris's brother is alive in the multiverse in this alternate dimension, and I've got to say, talking generically as the season, I thought this season had a stronger story than Season 1. I'm not trying to compare them in like a this is better type way, but it was a very strong character piece this second season, and I know off the bat the finale's been spoke about pretty negatively online. I understand a lot of people's issues with it, but I think how I spoke about Season 2 in that perspective, that, you know, it has very much been a character-driven piece. The finale really doubles down on that it isn't big, bombastic with action sequences. It's, hey, here's this character arc we've sort of been doing across 5-6 episodes. Now let's round it out, ready to push it elsewhere, and multiple characters get that moment.
Yeah.
And I thought overall, before getting into the deep side of the spoilers, this series did wonders for me. It didn't leave me disappointed as such or unsatisfied, but a tiny bit of me did wonder, could we have got something a little bit more with that finale? But I think for me, it's dependent on what follows down the line.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's really easy especially when you've got a story that does factor in multiverse, which obviously this did. And I'm not going to point the finger at Marvel directly because we've seen it in anything and everything that's done multiverse stories up to this point. In animation and in live action, multiverses have become nostalgia cameo clickbait. And I think you and I kind of touched on it when we talked about multiverses elsewhere. Whereas James Gunn never really, if we're being honest about everything he's done, he never does the obvious thing. And so he's actually managed to tell a multiverse story that doesn't have, I know there is a cameo, but it's not a person in the multiverse. It's somebody in our actual universe. He's actually told a multiverse story that is not just reliant on nostalgia or cameo bait. But it was easy to think, even with the finale, I think it was easy. If you saw the promo for the finale, you saw them opening all of the doors and you saw a couple of the universes that are in that episode. And it was easy for people online to then go, but what if they open a door and it's Stephen Amell and Grant Gustin? Or what if they open a door and I genuinely saw a lot of people say, what if they open a door and Henry Cavill's there in costume? Like, I really don't think that's going to happen. Don't get your hopes up for that kind of stuff. That's not the sort of storyteller that James Gunn is. But when you have that opportunity, it's easy to let your mind race and go, you know, we could have opened a door and seen Burt Ward and Adam West. It could have been anything like that. But, instead he chose to stick to his guns and do what he did with a accidental pun, to do what he did all season, which was do a really beautiful character story.
Yeah. And I think that's a key thing there is that the characters came first, and it's been the same with his Guardians trilogy. Yeah. The characters always came first, whether it be the band of misfits coming together in the first film, the second one going through the family relationship with his dad, and the third one about each Guardian resolving their story and the temperamental. And I think Peacemaker's gone a similar route, if I'm allowed to say that the first season was about putting this group together and turning that villain into I don't want to call him an anti-hero, it's overused these days, but
it's so cliche, isn't it? But it is kind of what
it's almost like a maturity. Like he's gone from being the patriot to an actual person. Yeah. And the second season has been those, okay, what are the hurdles that they have? And in the case of Christopher Smith, played by John Cena, who we'll sort of get into if we want to talk about his story arc too, probably one of the most simplistic concepts to continue his story is what happens if he basically finds his family, like through the multi-portal dimensions. He's going to find his brother and a dad that likes him, and they're popular in their lives. He's got the girl of his dreams. Like, how... I don't want to disrespect the writing by calling it simple, but it's kind of natural progression of his character, right? The first season deals with his struggles at the time, and this is dealing with his historic one, and I got to hand it to him. I think they've nailed the Peacemaker character arc with the family, and John Cena... I know we'll talk about his performance overall, but he is once again blowing my mind as someone that obviously spent many years watching him as a wrestler who is still wrestling for the next 2 months at least. He's in his final few months now. He's in Australia for a big match tomorrow, whilst the Peacemaker finale has aired. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit of a spoiler discussion. The scream in episode 7 of when they're sort of killing his brother was not only raw, but I just got to sit there and think, well, we are so far gone now from John Cena, the wrestler. And I know that James Gunn spoke publicly saying, I don't see him as a former wrestler. Yeah. He said, I see him as an actor, and he found his way into acting eventually, like many of us did. Which I thought was a really nice way of saying it, because not every actor begins as an actor. Some fall into it through jobs or through different things. But what did you think of Peacemaker in season 2?
You are absolutely right. It's incredible. I did not think. I'm probably the same as a lot of people in that I just thought, okay, he's a wrestler turned an actor. He's gonna turn in a reasonable performance as Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad, and it'll be maybe funny. It probably won't rewrite the rule book on anything. And then you realize how charismatic he is. And then you watch season 1 and you see that he can be funny, and you can see that he's goofy, and you can also see that there is a seriousness to him beyond how much he's, capable in fight sequences. And then you fast forward to this season, and he is a multi-layered, nuanced actor who can cry and make the audience feel sad for him, and make you, he can break your heart, which is, I don't think anyone ever thought that he was going to be capable of that. And this, I've said it before, I always said this was going to be the role of a lifetime for him, and this would probably be the role that he will be remembered for, regardless of anything else he does. And I think he would be happy with that. And it really is. It's quite a surprise. And I'm not saying he's going to go and win, Golden Globe for Best Actor or anything, but for the role that he's playing, the way it is written, it's a perfect combination. James Gunn knows how to write to his strengths. He knows what his strengths are, and it just works.
Yeah, and I kind of want to jump in without getting into a wrestling conversation, because I'll say that for Ren. The recent revelation that Peacemaker was originally written for Batista in Suicide Squad, that Batista couldn't do it, and then John Cena came on board. I'm going to say this, and I love Dave Batista. He's my favorite wrestler turned actor, if I'm allowed to say it in that way. I think he's the best of the big three, which they talk about. I just can't see him as Peacemaker, and maybe it would have been a completely different Peacemaker costume, everything, but I'm like, John Cena was so perfect, maybe because of his wrestling background and the American patriotism that comes with it.
Yeah, maybe.
But I could never have seen Batista in that. And Batista spoke so well about him. Like, no, I could never have done it. Like, this role was made for John Cena. He's like, he's nailed. I could never have done what he did. And I love that they're sort of bringing themselves up together. They're all hyping each other up rather than trying to be at each other. But I just couldn't believe it and I love Batista. I'll see him attached to anything, and he's going to surely end up in the DCU. I think that's like, I think he spoke about it. Everyone spoke about it. It's a when, not if for that role, isn't it? But yeah, that's just something to talk about because I felt like that was huge when that came out. It was Batista that spoke about it. It wasn't James Gunn. Like, yeah, we almost went for someone else.
Yeah.
I think for Cena to own the fact that, I wasn't their first choice, but I've made it my own as well, I think also goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I think his dedication to the character, I saw an interview of him at the red carpet where obviously once again, like season 1, he rocked up in costume.
Yeah.
He is so devoted to promoting that, and it kind of adds to the Peacemaker character.
It does.
Suicide Squad Peacemaker would turn up in his costume. Of course he would, but season 2 Peacemaker kind of wouldn't, but he still did. And I think it adds to the excitement. And he hits the red carpet lines an hour early to make sure everyone gets their interviews. And the one thing I love about wrestlers turned actors is they all basically mock actors and their struggles, not personal ones, but I think Batista's the one on record that's like, acting is the easiest job in the world because I used to spend 7 days a week on the road, flying, traveling, driving, wrestling, and they moan about having to get up for a 6 a.m. call time. And I love it when you get people that aren't entitled. And I think Cena spoke about it that I don't think he said it's easier than wrestling. I think he spoke about like, yep, this isn't an issue to do this. And the old wrestling grind is quite remarkable how the wrestlers were on the road their whole lives.
Yeah.
But it then adds, I think, to the acting side that they've conquered 2 industries. That's gone way off tangent. But we are going to talk about other characters too. I mean,
exactly. I was going to say, when you and I spoke about the first 5 episodes, I think we kind of highlighted 1 or 2 that we felt like had been slightly underexposed, but that we had kind of said that everyone was not taking a step back, but was less prominent because we were focusing on Chris's journey and how the impact on him of going to that other world and seeing the other version of his dad and his brother impacted on him. But boy, did those last 3 episodes, stepping aside from hype and multiverse, it really brought every single character into really sharp focus. And by the end of the finale, I was like, wow, everyone had a really solid arc this season, even though they may not have been as prominent at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think we had 2 names in particular who we spoke more heavily so, and I think rightfully we'll talk about them next. They are second and third build, I guess we should add. Let's talk Lyoto Adebayo, played by Danielle Brooks, who has the best scene of the final episode, probably the toughest scene, the most real, the relationship ending it.
Oh my God.
And I'm sat there like, this is a DC universe drama. Like, we're expecting Nazis and like a comedic holocausts, and we're getting a real life marriage breakup here, which felt organic. That was very well written with 2 wonderful performances.
Yeah.
How did you feel with her season 2 arc? Because you kind of said she didn't have a lot to do, but once they got into that multiverse and we got to spend, once we clocked what was going on as well with the, I know there's a comic book term. Did James going to reveal a term for what that multiverse was called officially?
By kind of tradition, it's Earth X. It's Earth 10, sometimes referred to as Earth 10, but it's Earth X. Also, from people will know it from the Crisis on Earth X 4-part crossover in the Arrowverse as well. So I don't think we ever outright said this was Earth X, but it's to all intents and purposes, it is the Earth X of the comics.
Yeah, amazing to hide that. So I'm going to talk about something. I'm going to go off on a tangent because I text this to you. I text this to friends at my old job. So I used to work in casting, which I've spoken about on the channel. I've never given too much away on that. It was not obviously lead actors and stuff. It was like extras, background, doubles, essays, stunts, everything you'd imagine that fits under
everything. Even props were all American made and not, there was no diversity in any aspect.
And we would be given instructions on productions, and I don't want anyone to cry in the comments being like, woke. No, it wasn't. Like, it was just, hey, we're doing a passerby sequence. We need 100 people. Split the ages up, split the demographics up, make it look like a normal street. So you do a balance, and you'd go and put people forward to not suit agendas, but this is actually how a street looks. Enter Peacemaker, where not once in my life have I ever said, nah, why does it matter if they're not all the same age, or they're this or they're that? And that was generic passerbyers. You know, you'd have certain things, obviously, shooting a World War film, can't be older than like 30, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So you have your instructions, and it must have been episode 3 or 4 when the public had started clocking on, like, there's no black people. And I was like, whoa, I was like, so I started looking at the clips, and I was like, either there's a story reason here, or legitimately, this is why I was wrong, and people needed to have diversity in casting essays. And then it became the talk of the season. Are they in a world where the Nazis won? And then you bring the fact that his brother, father, and him are seen as heroes. And obviously his dad was a massive racist. We'll get to that later with one of the best twists of the season. I sent it to friends that still work in casting. They sort of like made nothing of it because they didn't work on this, by the way. This filmed America season 2, right? It wasn't in the UK. So even if they were, they wouldn't have known. And it became, what's the revelation going to be? Obviously, it ends up being Earth X. One of the funnest twists in a while. A twist that worked for story because it's an ongoing character trait. That's what his character was previously. That's what his dad was. And of course, in the world where they're worshipped, that absolutely would make sense as to why they've been worshipped. But I think when you bring Danielle Brooks in, you know, as the lead black actress on this series, I know James Gunn said he spoke to her actually to check, like, are you comfortable doing these scenes? Are you okay if we do this? And she was, and I think it was the right thing to do to check. To bring back Judo Master as well without you even thinking that he'd be part of that too, I thought was hilarious. But I know I've sort of turned it away from the conversation of her in the multiverse from her character, but that was the ending of episode 6 was just when they said I think one got out, everyone was like, so everyone's like, great, we're going to find out what they got out from. Obviously we didn't. You don't need to know, you can assume, but yeah, Danielle Brooks season 2, the last 3 episodes, they sort of, for her, we'll get to Vigilante, turned it around.
Yeah, massively. I thought she took on a very sort of supporting role at the beginning, a very kind of almost maternal relationship, because she was, you know, we saw her driving Chris to the job interview for the Justice Gang. She was kind of looking after him. She was then dipping in and seeing each of them and sort of mummying all of them. She was the person, as they were sort of all separate at the beginning, she was the connective tissue between everyone. She was the one kind of holding the group together, which I guess was in a way her trying to hold that family together, because her real family, you know, her wife was breaking down. So then when she seems like such a rock for everyone, but then, not very prominent, you then hit Earth X, and suddenly it's very much about her because it's important who she is to the story in that world. And then you come into the final 2 episodes, and she is, again, she goes back to being the rock, but she's an incredible actress, which is, you know, why she's won Emmys, Globes. You know, she's a multi-award-winning actress, and she deserves it. And it's amazing that she's in a project like this, because, you know, you don't sometimes get actors of that level in shows like this. And she just absolutely smashes it out of the park. And that scene that you mentioned, where she goes back to her wife, and I you know, I'm sure everyone went into that scene thinking, okay, this is going to be either them getting back together or her trying to get them back together again, to being the most refreshingly honest breakup scene, to then see her go after Chris to get him to come back, and how she pleads with him is just heartbreaking. She is brilliant. She is, I think, by far the MVP of the 11th Street Kids. Because she's so good.
I agree with that. And I think you can really start to see, not the cogs turning, not the whole she's her mother's daughter, but I think, well, that is Amanda Waller's daughter. Yeah. And you're starting to see it more, not in terms of attitude or crass or sly things, but the leadership traits that will put a character on. And I'm really excited to see if we get a 3rd season. We have to say if, there's nothing confirmed, but there's obviously a Man of Tomorrow film. I'd be curious to know what they continue to do with her, because now the relationship angle is kind of gone. It will be professional moves
So what
next.
James Gunn has said, there was a press conference, I wasn't at it, that he did with a few press, having allowed them to see the finale first. And he has said that he currently is not planning on doing a season 3. He hasn't said, he said never say never, we may come back to it, but for now they're gonna be folded into everything else. So now that she has started Checkmate, which I saw coming ever so slightly when she set up her own agency, so I had a massive like moment when that was revealed in the finale. We're going to see them probably. We may even see them turn up in lanterns. But what he said is you're going to start seeing them turning up in a lot of different places now, because they are the anti-Argus. They are the heroic version, which they aren't always in the comics. But they're going to be more of a force for good in the DCU, it seems. And he has said we're going to start seeing a lot more of them in other projects as well now. So we're going to start seeing those characters elsewhere.
I did sit there thinking, Man of Tomorrow, like, I'm expecting it, you just get everyone turn up. Not in a cheap way, but in a kind of makes sense story-wise, that they're going to be on the hunt for
if you look at that finale, obviously a couple of episodes before that, we'd had the cameo, which let's go. Lex Luthor was in it. Nicholas Hoult returned as Lex Luthor. And then we saw one of his kind of goons in the next episode. And that took us to the set, which was his base of operations from Superman. In the finale, you then got a handful of his people that were going to see that.
More and more continue to come.
You also then saw the Secretary of Defense, same actor from Superman. Rick Flag Sr. did his presentation about what he wanted to do with the door technology in the same room that was from the Secretary of Defense's scenes in Superman. So suddenly the world got very connected. We were seeing a lot of familiar locations, a lot of familiar supporting players. It's all become a lot more connected than I think. Well, it's not connected in a way that you have to have watched Peacemaker to understand what's going to be happening in Man of Tomorrow. Like they will explain what salvation is when you get into Man of Tomorrow. But if you are watching everything, the world is very real and very connected in locations and characters and faces that you see.
Yeah, I think it's great you said that, because the connective tissues is something we thought, and I don't want to make digs at Marvel by saying this. It doesn't always have to be cameos.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to have a cameo still. But if people are coming in for story purposes, as you said, right, they're not the A-listers. You didn't get Superman. You didn't get... we did get Lex Luthor, but it wasn't the A-listers. It wasn't, they contract obligated to rock up for a day. It was, hey, can we put these basically supporting actors on set for a couple of days with you in a montage to show that his team is growing, that they're coming back?
Yeah.
It makes it feel like it's part of a bigger picture and a bigger plan, which Lex Luthor has. And he didn't have a presence. He had more of a presence in the finale than the episode he appeared in, because we are seeing his plan coming to fruition. Yeah. And that then makes us in turn excited for what is to come. Yeah. Which I think is great. And it is worth singing that out, praising that, because it's a different approach.
I think it's something that Marvel used to do well, and I don't think they do it as well now. Because if you go back to sort of earlier phase, maybe not phase 1, I can't think when we first saw them. It might have been the first Avengers. The World Council. Do you remember the World Council? You only ever really... Yes. You'd sometimes see them in silhouette, and you'd sometimes see them actually physically there. And I don't know if we have actually seen them since
Winter Soldier.
No, we saw them after that. They were in Civil War, because they were there for the Sokovia Accords, and I don't know that we've seen them since then. And it's those types of roles which I think are really important, because if you've got the same president in every film, even if they're a passing mention or seen on a TV somewhere, so like the Secretary of Defense being in Peacemaker being the same one as Superman, it doesn't take away from the main cast, because it's not a David Corenswet, it's not a Rachel Brosnahan, but it is a face that you know, and you're like, oh, cool. I know that he was on the fence about metahumans when we saw him in Superman. He's clearly decided that he's a bit more on side with them, so he's worried about why Rick Flag is now picking up Lex Luthor's plan. That tells me that there's things happening in the world, in the background, in the government. And I think it's stuff like that which makes it really, work and really succinct as a universe, because it's not, like you just said, it's not let's get the big name in for a random look, here they are, but it's telling you that there are things happening across all of these different stories that involve people that are important in the world of, even if they're not important for us per se.
Yeah, and that is what a connective tissue is. And when you look at comic books as well,
Yes,
a lot of the time it's not Batman rocked up in Superman's issue. It will be somebody from Gotham is popping up, and we're getting those smaller links that will turn into something bigger when it needs to turn into something bigger. Not now, but it will eventually get there, and it feels like it's organically growing.
Yes,
and I think
definitely
Marvel was, I think, at their best at organically growing stuff in sort of phase 2 into 3. Obviously, phase 1's a bit different because it was very much individual films. Suddenly, let's get them together. And they say Iron Man 2 is the sacrificial lamb. It's not as... Looking back at Iron Man 2, so many people are sat there like, oh, it was an Avengers set film. It really wasn't.
I don't feel...
It really wasn't.
It being like that, yeah.
What, because he held a half-damaged shield in his apartment and they brought in the Black Widow, which kind of was great to bring in at that point in time, if I'm honest. But this feels like they're taking a slower, more direct approach to those topics and conversations. And I know we'll have a massive talk on what is next for DC. So we're going to scatter it throughout.
Yes.
So it's possible not to talk about... No, because I want it. It turns into that. But I've been desperate to talk about Freddie Strowman for a while because that was the one character in this first live. I was like, wow, I'm really nervous that he's got nothing to do this time around.
A lot of people that I spoke to, some who had seen the 5 episodes like you and I, and others that were just watching it week by week through those 5 episodes, were all very nervous about him and feeling like he was very much left in the dust.
And how wrong we all were. Episode 6 and 7, oh my word. Perfect.
I think from that moment when he reads Chris's letter and he has the moment where he's crying on the bed and Ads comes in and comforts him, he just, like, the trajectory just went up from there.
So I had one spoiler in the whole season, and it was the morning episode 7 aired. And it wasn't the spoiler. I'd woken up, I was on autopilot, I had to go to the office that day. My office is 2 hours away, it's a long day. And by default, I went on Twitter, and I saw the Spider-Man 66 meme. But obviously, the official DC account had put it in, and they'd put it as Vigilante. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm half tired, but okay, he's going to meet... Because obviously, he'd gone off to meet himself. But I don't think he has an arc as such, but his placement in the series with those characters, he is the comedic sidekick. I know there's a little bit more to him than that, but the face-to-face with his multiversal self, who isn't trying to kill him, who they are completely identical, and ingenious writing itself in the world where the Nazis won and you can't come out publicly as gay. You don't know at this point in time, but he's like, my dad's not gay in this world. Well, actually, he still probably is, but he's not going to say anything because he's in the Nazis world. And even that then has knock-on effects. And I loved what he got to do in those 2 episodes. And I know I'm jumping ahead to the big moment of episode 7, but when the 2 vigilantes team up and go for that kill, you're sort of like... You're laughing at how tragic it is because it's actually so funny at the exact same time. But I loved him, and kind of delaying him to get his moments until later on in the season, I think nailed it. And I really, really love this performance. It's one of those characters who every time he pops up this month, and I was considering, he was hardly in the costume. Episode 8, when he tases him, knocks him out, and it's, look, and this is the difficulty of being in a position like us where we're very fortunate, and I do think not us two, but certainly others, a lot of people take the fortune of getting certain shows early in films, they massively take it for advantage, whereas I don't. And I do sit there thinking, week to week to week, I'd have had a different experience of Peacemaker season 2. And I have to know that while doing these discussions. But we got to at least the last 3 in the weekly order, which I respect as well. Even if people are curious, we'd get an email at 3 minutes past 2 in the morning to say, here's the next episode. And it's because it's aired at that point in time. I would have been more worried about if it had been week to week, I'm trying to phrase this right, we hardly got in for this first 5.
Yeah.
I'd have been more nervous. Whereas because we bulk watched the first 5, we're sat there like, yeah, he's surely going to have more to do in the next couple. Like, he surely is. And I think that's the structure of when you're watching it versus when you're not. But what did you think of his arc aside from the outrageous, entertaining stuff?
Those last 3 episodes were really interesting, and I hadn't realised that was his mum who's in the opening credits. So I've been every week,
Until the end.
Who is this woman? Who is this woman?
Yeah.
And then finally it's like, it's his mum. Okay. And he is such a dick to her. So I loved how they challenged that in the finale. And I wonder whether that relationship will change if we ever see her again. But I really liked how it's funny because as you were talking about him, I was thinking, well, he ends up kind of being the heart of the season, but then so does Leota, but then so does Amelia.
All of them.
They all do.
As well.
He has his moment for. I think through him we understand how much someone can love Peacemaker because he does kind of unconditionally love him as a best friend. And we also know that he is not great at being able to share his emotions. So when you see him trying to beg Chris to come back, and then how much not having his best friend around kind of impacts on him, I think you then realize that actually Freddie Stromer's just doing an amazing job. And then he kind of gets to do all this fun stuff on the side as well, like that moment where, in episode 7, where he dives through the window and happens to, spoiler alert, kill Peacemaker's dad in the other universe. And from the second you see him outside the window, you're like, oh no, I know what's about to happen. I know what is good. Oh,
the elongated speech as well.
Another James Gunn doesn't fall into the trap of doing what everyone thinks is going to happen. The right vigilante came back as well, because there were a handful of people that were like, oh, that's not him. Ours is stuck over there. The other one's come back because he wants a better life in a different universe. I was like, no, it's ours. That is our Adrian.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up as well, because I hadn't even thought of that. You two said things they always do. It's such an...
It's an easy thing to do. It's a really like traditional trope of then I mean, like if you go back to Fringe, they got half a season out of the 2 co-leads not knowing that Olivia was from an alternate universe and that they had swapped places. And it works when you write it really well. It can work, but it's just a really obvious thing to do, which I'm glad this show avoided.
Yeah, and it didn't need it for the stories they were telling us. Well, that
I don't think so.
And I think it to have been Vigilante too, that whilst he's not in the universe he wants to be in, I don't think he'd have the selfishness to have ever tried to go over either.
Yeah.
Because the logic is he is the same character. Because in this, the DC Hughes Vigilante, he would have obviously also been against Nazis, which kind of makes the point. And I loved what they did with that concept of them too, that the fact he was off on his own side mission, like, I've got the same keys that work, I've got the same door, I've got the same everything. And it was so funny that it was so easy. You're expecting it to be an opposite when he gets down those stairs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And it was so funny.
I think that became really important because the idea of sort of Earth X and the Nazis could have made the show go incredibly serious. And this is not a show that would really do incredibly serious. And okay, fair enough. They do. I'm trying to pick my words really carefully. They don't exactly. It's not like they're mocking what the Nazis did, but like the moment where they play for laughs that Chris has never noticed the giant mural of Hitler in the Argus office and stuff like that. They can play it for laughs, but they needed something to balance it out so that it didn't become too heavy. And I think Adrian's scenes in those moments played really well to make sure that the series didn't suddenly tip the scales and become something different just because it was tackling a slightly more serious bit of subject matter for a little while.
Yeah, and I think kind of without moving into the conversation hardcore, the use of her character in that multiverse sort of pairs that. I took that he didn't go over there for the ideologies or that, and I love the fact that the hardcore from their DCU notices it immediately. This place ain't right. Like, this place is, and she knows it. But the other version we get of her to play along is you think that she's going to be the blasé, not damsel in distress, but she's in love with him and they want to get her together. And I really liked that angle that Jennifer Holland got to play essentially 2 different characters whilst it's obviously the same person.
I can't remember the exact quote, but there was something that James Gunn said that made complete sense to me about how all of those people are obviously young enough that they weren't around during World War II, so it doesn't compute.
They've been born
to them.
into those ideologies.
Yeah, it's just the ideology you grew up with, like the ideologies that we have that we grew up with. They don't know any different, so they don't know. They don't know that they're horrible Nazis. It's just life, and I found that worked really well, particularly for Augie's character, which I know we'll get to in just a second. But I thought it was really clever the way that he played the racial issue.
Yes, I think it's. I know it's a delicate subject. We're all sort of mature. Me and you are, at least. I don't know half of YouTube, but
we are white men having this conversation.
It's one of them where if I just jump not ahead, but when he gets into episode 6, one got out. People are talking about, like, are we going to see like death camps? Are we going to see where they keep like all the ethnics and stuff like that? And
that's when it would have become too heavy.
This is it. That, and if I'd go one step further, that would need to be its own show.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, is it called Das Boot, where it is a show about the Nazis winning the war? Obviously not superheroes, but I've got a colleague of mine at work, and I wouldn't say he's new. We're not newer to talking to one another. I found out he's into Peacemaker, and he'd messaged me like, G.I. Robot's going to surely tell up. I was like, whoa, you watch Creature Commandos? He's like, no, but I've seen the G.I. Robot clips. And I was like, everywhere was then discussing about what could happen. And it's great that the show with the interest and the anticipation and the theorizing that gives it word of mouth that strengthens it week to week to week. And I think that's where people are going to have issues with the finale, that they built those expectations up. I'm not saying you shouldn't either, because I did sit there thinking, wow, if G.I. Robot rocks it. But I also was like, how? That's the key. How? It would be great, but it wouldn't have made any sense. But I was sat there like, I'd take it in a heartbeat. Absolutely. And I think you're right about the hardcore stuff, that, these are the ideologies they grew up in, and they're not sat there weighing it, but when they obviously see a black character, that's when their reaction is like, oh my God. And that'll be the things we don't know about. But that's a different show. It's too heavy for what this is.
Yeah.
And it's already quite heavy by itself. The fact that, it's dealing with all these characters with all these, I don't want to call it a depressing season, but they've all had their personal battles this season more so than the first one.
Yeah.
Especially when we look at Hardcore and kind of episode 8, the where I go with being ballsy, the fact it opens with what happens between them. Because I was sat there.
They never slept together. I thought they had slept together, so I love that that's not what had happened.
So I should have rewatched season 1, because I sat there like, did they get together at the end of season 1? I didn't clock.
No.
Like, I was like, have I just missed something? And I was like,
they never had a moment,
chemistry,
but there was chemistry. Yeah, it did that classic.
And
there's clearly an attraction here, sort of thing.
And that's why I was so not confused. But I was like, oh, okay, something must have happened at the end that I just forgot about. Then when we get to episode 8, I was like, oh, this is what happened. Like, I'm intrigued, and I think it's quite ballsy to do that in a season finale. Again, I understand people aren't going to like that, but it works for what this season is and was trying to be.
And
I think it works for the characters.
I'm talking about it in the first episode.
Yeah, and obviously it's a great way to then bring in talk about cameos people didn't want. Obviously, we have the music, the theme being played within the probably one of the first times that's actually happened, like canonically with any kind of show, that the show's theme is played by the band that performed it, but in actual story.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's ever happened before, but
I don't think you ever saw. Like, I'm trying to think. Buffy had.
I don't know if the young ones count,
but they never. I don't think the band that played the Buffy theme tune played in the club in the show, but never played the actual tune itself. They played something else. So I don't.
Insane.
Yeah.
So, someone please correct us, because I'm sure there probably has been someone do it before, but it's so.
I'm sure it has.
And the fact is, like, popular music as well, rather than like a soundtrack song being played. You just know that sort of thing. But I love that little bit in the finale. But
I think the thing for me was how much, because when you, I'm sure most people out there probably did the same thing as me, which was presume that they had slept together.
Yeah,
because it was so serious when they were having the conversation in the first episode, when she is like, it meant nothing to me, it should never have happened, and you're like, damn, they slept together, and now this is where they are. He's taken it so seriously that he's like, I love you, and she's saying, I'm not ready to be with another person. So to then learn that all of that came from a kiss, you're like, oh, they really care for each other a lot. That caused this much of a fracture between them.
Can I ask you a question before I embarrass myself on air? Was it her in this canon universe that was with Rick Flag the day before he died?
Yes.
Or was that the multi? Because that was an insane thing. I know I've just chucked that in there now. That was like, oh my words. She and Rick Flag were a thing, and he killed Rick Flag, and now they're together, sort of, but not sort of.
So that's the whole thing. So that's why she has the reaction when she kisses him, because she was with Rick to a point where she still wasn't ready to admit that she had feelings for him, but they were obviously very, very close. Yeah. And then she went after Peacemaker, knowing, and she's so cold to him in season 1 because he is the man that ruined. He is the man that killed the man that she loved. So that is why her reaction is so strong when she then kisses him, because he's the guy that she's supposed to hate because he ruined her life in a way.
Yeah, I want to clarify that because I know he popped up in the other universe. I was like, I need to really.
We did see both versions of him very close together, which is easy to then get confused as to what was what.
And also, again, our benefit. This was like 6-7 weeks ago. We saw it as well, which makes it a little bit harder to remember. When I watched all 5 in 2 sittings. I think I messaged you I'll do them over the weekend. I was like, oh no, I've done them already. It was great. Shout out to Warner Brothers who have a screening app that actually works on TVs.
Yeah,
it isn't just a laptop. It goes a long way. It doesn't have your email up in the whole front page. Looking at you, Disney. But I want to talk about someone who maybe I'll be in a minus very quick because we are. I know we've almost hit the hour, and I said, "Oh, it'll be an hour." John, I don't think gets a lot to do. Maybe in the latter ones, but played by Steve Agee, the comic relief of the group.
I love
very
him.
much in that role. One of James Gunn's guys. Obviously, he did the
So I spoke to him at the junket, and he is a real sweetie as well. He's a lovely, lovely, lovely man.
Very funny. He fits in with this show, and it's not like, oh, it's one of James Gunn's mates. It's they found a purpose for him. It works. The comedic stuff's great. I loved him in the other verse when we got to see him with the dad, and he's sort of letting it out, but not letting it out at the same time. And he doesn't have a lot to do, but he does deliver with that. I'm not just speeding past him in a rude way, but I do want to get to the antagonist of the season quicker, unless you want to talk about Steve Agee quickly.
I think the only thing I want to say was I loved how much they played this. He has some amazing comedic moments. So bird blindness, all of his scenes with I'm going to forget his name now. Because I do
Tim Meadows.
Thank you, Tim Meadows. I was about to flick to IMDb on my screen. All of his scenes with Tim Meadows, incredible. All of his scenes as well with Sacha Bordeaux are great. That's character name, not actress name. I love seeing the pairing of Economos and Sacha together as well. So I'm glad that they then had a little moment in the finale. But what I really want to say was Eagly. Oh my God. So I loved that even though Eagly and him have such a dodgy relationship, that when Chris is in prison, he's looking after Eagly and he's worried about him because Eagly's depressed. To then the moment, because I feel like John is always played as someone who pretends like he hates everyone, but you know that he secretly loves them. So when Eagly puts his wing around him and gives him a hug, and Economos's lip starts to quiver because he's crying because Eagly loves him. I was just, honestly, so many moments in the finale where it started to set me off and get me emotional because I was just like, I care about these people so much.
I love that. It's such a nice. The fact Eagly's hiding in the cupboard, he's going around the house looking for him. He's like, he's
exactly.
It's so cute, and I love the fact that Eagly even has an arc with all the other. Michael Rooker's character, Eagly kind of being the god of the Eagles and actually being a real. I just thought was so funny. Yeah. And again, in those early episodes, you can really play with that. But I get why you need that done and dusted way before you get to the latter ones. Yeah, love Michael Rooker for what he added in his episodes. Tim Meadows you spoke about as well was hilarious from start to finish.
And
I
they've
know
noted that he
everyone's
will absolutely be in Man of Tomorrow as well. So we're obviously going to see checkmate there. So the fact that there's going to be more Tim Meadows is great, and I'm looking forward to seeing Langston Fleury as a character in what the tone of Man of Tomorrow will be like, because we'll get to see a slightly different side of him.
Did you see the tweet that went viral about someone saying that they hope he is the character to say, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman, because of the bird blindness.
Yes.
Someone said if someone said they can get Tim Meadows to say it, it'll be perfect. And the thing is, I could see them doing that.
And I want to see what he makes of Hawk Girl as well.
It's just to get him on board. I mean, comedy legend as well. I know he's not as well known here in the UK as America, but most people would have seen like Mean Girls at least, wouldn't they, from what he's been in? But he's done so much of his career. It's great to see him in this. But let's talk before we get to the multiverse.
You want to talk about Dad and brother?
Dan, who have I met?
Dad.
Oh, I do. I can't wait to get there. I'm sorry, I'm desperate. But Rick Flag Senior.
Oh yeah.
Not
our villain,
Frank Grillo. I'm going to contrast this. I've been very glowing of the season, and I have a real issue with this. I do and I don't. So hear me out. Love the idea. Hey, guess what? The antagonist of the show is going to be, with a series that's reflecting on the past. You killed your brother in season 1. Now you're going to see your brother. The central theme was going to be, guess what? You're dealing with the dad of the guy you killed who wants to kill you. I loved him in the first 7 episodes of the season.
Not
as an antagonist.
Yeah.
I'm in a weird zone of the finale, so kind of hear me out. Maybe because I saw Creature Commandos, and he was a bit stupid because he obviously slept with I've forgotten her name, the princess, and was part of the a weakness of his, exploitive sex, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
As the head of Argus, as the antagonist, and maybe I'm just looking at this too far. I really hate how easy he was manipulated by Lex Luthor. Now, it's not about the montage or bringing the others in. I just feel like the click of the fingers, he went from scary, serious antagonist that wants to kill John Cena to build the prison. Like, I don't think he would have happily sacrificed all those people to find where he was going. And I know the logic was he's so much of a puppet that he's doing that. I think it, to me, ever so slightly discredited him a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense.
Him putting him putting Peacemaker, calling him the piece of shit that he is at the end, loved him. And I can't wait to see more from him. I just think maybe, I don't know, it felt too puppety, but that's the point though, right? That he is a puppet of Lex Luthor now.
Yeah, so he has, James Gunn has said in this same press conference post finale, has said that essentially Rick Flag Senior is just kind of stupid and is just literally driven by pure anger and revenge. But I do, so I feel like there's the tiniest bit of precedent because he's sort of on side with Lex and Superman, and he is quite anti-metahuman at that point. So there was enough there for me to be like, okay, I can see how he could get on board with the idea of imprisoning them because he thinks that they're a threat. But then you get the flip side, which is he slept with Sasha, who has metahuman abilities because she's been augmented, and he must know that because she openly used her abilities when they captured Chris way earlier in the season, like episode 4, or was it 5? I do think there was a bit of a weird step up where we went from him being as in control as he was that he beat Chris up in Argus to then knowing that he crossed universes and thinking, I need someone who understands this tech, which fair enough leads into Lex Luthor. That's very organic. But to then somehow in that conversation, become a complete puppet straight away like that. I just needed a tiny, tiny little bit more as to what was the thing that Lex gave him that meant that he was that sold straight away. And yes, okay, it was, I'll give you the ability to be able to go after him to go and get him. But because we didn't then see Rick go, like it wasn't him that went and brought Chris back from the other universe, it was his friends. So yeah, it just isn't. That is probably the biggest critique for me, is that there was a little bit of a heel turn that doesn't quite have enough development to make it fully land.
Bingo. You've never, and that's kind of my thing with it, because I really like Frank Grillo as an actor.
Yeah, brilliant.
And when he's
Brilliant
in
cast as well.
roles such as this, he's just built for.
Yeah,
especially as he's a bit older now. I know they spoke about him saying that they had to really like convince him to do the dance at the start.
Yeah.
Now I know that when I watched Fire, I was just watching him the whole time. Is there anything that's going to give it away that he's not because he's the first one to drop on the floor as well. I was just watching like, is there any hints that he did want to be involved there? But I can't wait to see more from him. I just hope that we get a little bit more development, because again, the angle with his son, it's kind of forgotten about by the time of that finale. And the interrogation room where like Peacemaker won't fight back and he takes that knee to the face like an absolute champ. It was so well done. I just think, that finale, that's my only real drag of the season, was that, because everything else of what I thought would happen absolutely didn't happen. And that leads us, I know we've hit the hour mark, to get into that. We've spoken about the multiversal, so I'm not going to talk about the effects. We've done all that.
Yeah.
But we get to talk about Keith and Oggy now, which I didn't realize, because I hadn't seen the trailers. I remember messaging you like, "Oh, the brothers Ivan," and you're like, "Yeah, they didn't tell anyone." I was like, "What?" Yeah. And I think I said the same about Rick Flag Jr. And I was like, "I'm sure I had read he was in it." And you're like, "No, it's because the Warner Bros. Put do not say that we've got Rick Flag in it." And I was like, "Oh, I'm really out the loop." And thank God I didn't say anything in my spoiler-free review, because I remember texting you like, I hadn't read the bullet points. Yeah. I don't know what I've spoke about. I've had to go back and watch a video to check I haven't breached the embargo, and I didn't, thankfully. Oh man, the twist of them both. Well, I was going to say both being alive. Two twists within this. The brother being alive is amazing.
Yeah,
and I think I know it's only Peacemaker and it's DC and people are not looking to be serious, but from a story point, it's like the forbidden tree, right? And I'm not religious at all, but it's that. What's the one thing that would get Peacemaker to go in there? It's the hook. It's the brother. It's the fact he's loved. It's everything he never had and more in that multiverse.
It's a family.
Take all the Earth X stuff away. That's a fantastic twist to progress the story.
Yeah.
For why the others can't live that life, but he absolutely can. But the logic of the brother being like, I've really liked David Denman, who I'm going to be totally transparent. I've seen in nothing except The Office. I know he spoke that he's lost a lot of weight to do this. He spoke about this almost saving his life to an extent. I think he's the biggest he's ever been. So he's lost a lot of weight to be in the show, which is great to always hear for any actor. I loved seeing the relationship stuff with the siblings and the dads. But David Denman, this isn't a criticism. When they're all walking out a checkpoint in slow-mo and the theme's playing, I was like, this is all going far too well. Surely he's about to come in out of nowhere through the multiverse and just attack him, because the way episode 7 finished, for me, it felt like he's going to come back. He's now going to be the final boss for episode 8 to end season 2.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the fact he wasn't that, but it felt like that was the avenue, because it felt like the whole season was about the relationship with his brother. Now, whether it means in the future he might come back, dependent on obviously season 3 and whatnot, it feels like whilst they've patched up the multiverse, feels like a gaping hole in the story.
So again, same press conference, James Gunn said he has an idea of what he wants to do and how he wants to bring him back. He just doesn't quite know when is the right time to do it because of the other plans of things they've got going on. So he knows story-wise what it is he wants to do, whether that be thematically or whether there's something actually like complete plot point he has in mind. He just isn't quite sure yet where it fits in with everything else that's happening. But he wants to do it. He wants to bring him back, and he wants to find a way to make it work.
Lovely, thank you.
I think it needs to be done. It's too much of it's just too left open.
It's also it's both left open and it's desirable.
Yeah,
sometimes a film will leave open a plot. You're like, I can't really be asked that. Never gets paid off. But this is like, I need to see that payoff because the acting in that scene, episode 7. We talk about Oggy as well. The fact that if we just say it, whilst he is the white supremacist in our timeline, that lived a life of miserable because he didn't get what he wanted, the quite simple assumption that, yeah, man, he loves the fact that the Nazis won and he's in his prime in this world. And the revelation that in that other multiverse, I don't want to say he's as miserable, but obviously in the Nazis, you know, basic history, you wouldn't be able to pretend not to be. But the fact that he isn't a part of their politics, and what we spoke about earlier, that he said, you know, I cannot change the world I live in, and I'm not one of them. And when you get onto that incredible speech about the fact he's not a Nazi, the props to the editing to cut to the shot when you just think it's going to be the generic superhero speech about I'm not a Nazi, I'm going to save the day, let's get you all out of here. That whole episode built up to that moment. You know, no one can know about these portals. You start to think, oh, he's the good guy. Like, he's bad, but he's good. And just the shot of Vigilante, it was so funny in the most disastrous possible circumstances.
Yeah.
I think what made it worse. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Yep.
Sorry, I've never read that chat. You know the red wedding with the pregnant baby? It reminded me of Vigilante is just there, like just loads of, and it was so funny, and it shouldn't be funny.
Yeah.
And that's the joke, is that Peacemaker can't have that life that he wants, and he's already killed himself. And now, you know, for the first time, he's seeing his dad as a hero, being killed by his best friend, and then the brother's about to be killed by them all as well.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you write something that good. Like,
No.
it's just not what I expect. I don't think it's like subverting expectations in the overused modern day term, but it's strong writing. I don't have the right term to call it that. It's actually quite great. And if you retrace Oggy across season 2, he was actually always quite tame, quite reserved, and it's because he was, you know, living in a world he didn't want to be a part of. And in the same way that, you know, a white supremacist has to hide, well, maybe not as much these days, but the same way that white supremacists would have to hide in plain sight now, I guess in theirs it's you have to hide in plain sight by not being a racist, sexist, homophobic.
I love what James Gunn is saying with the whole thing, because he's kind of saying he's the same guy in both universes. The difference is who's in power. His actual character trait is that he is anti-establishment. So in our world, he's anti-woke, anti-whatever. He's probably a Trump supporter. And so it means that in our universe, that pushes him into being a kind of white supremacist, because he believes that kind of conspiracy theory, alternative thinking. In this world, where the Nazis are in power, he naturally revolts against power, and that means that he's actually kind of a good guy.
So much, and I love Robert Patrick's.
Oh, so brilliant.
I was a bit nervous about him coming back, if I'm totally honest. I was always a bit, were we sure we want to do it again? But again, for what? And I think Robert Patrick spoke about it in interview that, you know, they had the story. Yeah. It wasn't for the sake of it. I'm not saying he'd do anything for money, but he said, you know, there was the story and it made sense and I wanted to come back. And I think they delivered on this. And I do think James Gunn's the type of guy that won't bring someone back for the sake of it.
Yeah, I agree.
But it is such a great choice. And I think it made the season for me. Again, how horrible it went episode 7 for him. It just added to the Peacemaker story in the series. And it makes, and it sounds really horrible, it makes you like Vigilante more as well. Like, he got his moment, and it was the worst possible moment, but he was absolutely right to do it because
his best friend.
Exactly, and the fact both of them were involved as well. It just what a moment.
Then, what you have to love about that, moving on from that, and I think this is where I think people underestimate James Gunn, because firstly, the way he's done Augie is just genius, but then, after all that, Chris never, ever blames Vigilante for killing his dad. He only blames himself because he brought the whole thing on all of those people. There was never a single second on screen of him saying, he don't even says, you killed my dad. He doesn't even acknowledge it. It is purely, this is all on me. Which is, again, a very different way to approach it. Because the obvious way would be for him to then revolt against his friends, going, you just tried to kill my brother and you killed my dad.
But he's taken responsibility for himself, and he's wrong, but he's right, because he isn't the reason all that happened in, but by going into that portal repetitively in seeking that better life, he's not only lost his dad again, but he's now got a brother that doesn't, have a dad or another brother.
Yeah.
And he is the brother's enemy now that he did all of this. And I thought David Dunn was really good in that scene as well when the dad dies. John Cena, again, the acting in the scream sequence, getting them all off him, saving him, was so well done. And it was a weird scream. Not like, haha, funny, but it was like, it feels raw, it felt real.
Yeah.
And
I don't know quite where he dug that up from, but it was, that's
the thing. It just feels like something that, not like only John Cena do, but every actor could probably do something like that, but only their voice box and their dialects could have that reaction. And as you said, where did it come from? And impressive. And it was powerful as well in that sequence with everything going on. I just loved it. And it's kind of how this discussion's gone. Like, there's so much love of the season, and we've had a comment saying, did we give episode 8 a grade or score? So we don't really do grades or scores. But seeing as we spoke about other characters, we'd written the schedule, quotation marks, final 3 episode hype, because I'm not going to just sit on the finale. We're not about that. We're looking at the season as a whole. Overall, I've loved the second season. There was a lot of talk about the last 3 episodes. It was going to change everything. And because we spoke many times tonight, we're in that lucky bracket of we got to see the first 5 early. The discussions about 6, 7, 8 is going to change everything. The biggest cameo ever. It's got an impact from Superman. It's going to set up everything to come. I don't entirely disagree, but I do think, and this isn't exclusive to DC, but obviously in the context of Peacemaker Season 2, we talk about it, hyperbolic reactions are killing the film and TV industry. And for marketing purposes, I should say, not actual quality.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm not going to shit on pull quotes. If anyone doesn't know what a pull quote is, when you watch a trailer and it will say, like, smashing, Hollywood Reporter. Yeah, like, Marvel is back. Didn't follow up the second bit. It was like their best film in 5 years. I do think they've oversold the hype of the last 3 episodes. That being said, I understand they absolutely wouldn't wanted anything to leak from Earth X.
Yeah.
The big twist. And I get that. I don't think they thought people had worked out. I wouldn't have thought that. Again, even with that background I mentioned, I didn't think people worked out, but they did. Which goes to show people are onto everything.
Yes, they really are.
But the finale for me, it's getting a lot of blowback online. I wasn't disappointed by it. I kind of said to you, I don't know if I said it before it live or just in this video, but I've really liked the finale. It's a very different kind of finale from I think what we're used to with TV. And I think I understand if people are going to pull away from it. But for me, looking at season 2 as an overall, from a start to finish, the finale being a character-centric piece, closing the character arcs from the second season of multiple characters, is actually kind of how a finale is meant to go. And I fully understand just what we said, right? The David Denman bit, or maybe me being a bit disappointed with Rick Flag that he feels like he's jumped too much. It didn't just feel like now we're setting up Man of Tomorrow. It helps we've got the information that we can look to something to come. But I don't think they lost sight of what Peacemaker Season 2 was.
Exactly.
Whilst making the call. I know that's an elongated way of... sorry, I'm just going to put one more thing he put. The hype of 6, 7 is there, but definitely over a promise of 8. I kind of agree. And I guess the logic with that is, can the showrunner, take away the fact he had a DC, can the showrunner say, episode 6 and 7 is going to be crazy, but not 8?
So, hate to say his name, Joss Whedon did this. This is season 4 Buffy. So if you go back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that show did the serialized thing and the Monster of the Week thing. So you always knew kind of episode 1 of the season, introducing who's the big bad that you're going to end up fighting at the end of the season. After 3 seasons, he went, I'm kind of bored of this. I want to do something different. And season 4 is a season that a lot of people don't like as much. They think it's one of the weakest points of that whole show. And they did what would be your traditional season finale in episode 21, not 22. So similar to what Peacemaker did here. They do the big fight in the penultimate episode, and the finale. So the penultimate episode was called Primeval. The finale was called Restless, and it was completely separate. All it was the characters were completely worn out from the fight they'd had in the previous episode, and a demon attacked them in their dreams. So it's vaguely connected to the arc of the season in that it was the fallout from the big fight at the end. But other than that, completely random episode, which was character focused on what's happening in their subconscious in their dreams. And people went, no, I can't. Sorry, I need the finale should be the big thing. This should be the big fight thing. So it's interesting to me that James Gunn's done it. I mean, there are plenty of other shows that have done it at some point, but that's the one that sticks out most to me, because I remember at the time how people were like, well, why did you do all the big stuff there the week before and then do this really like low-key finale? But yeah, like we were saying just before we went live, and I would be interested, commenter, are you a comic book fan? How much of what was in the final episode were you aware of as a comic book reference? Because I also feel like James Gunn, as a big comic book nerd, was probably really hyped about aspects of the finale like Checkpoint and Salvation, kind of forgetting that, oh, thank you. I can guarantee it's the craziest, wildest, most insane, wonderful episode of Peacemaker we've ever produced. I kind of agree with it in a way. Maybe not craziest. Craziest? What? Wildest?
It's weird because I agree with this. I agree with the second half. The craziest and wildest kind of throw me, but the others don't. And I don't know the source of that. I'm not discrediting you at all. So
no, I'm sure that is what he said, and I'm sure I have read that quote.
Was it? Do I have him on social media?
What I was going to say I just wonder whether he got wrapped up in how much he was pulling from the source material and how much diehard comic book nerds would love seeing things like Checkmate and Salvation and know what they could mean in the story, particularly because, like in the comics, both Amelia Harcourt and Sacha Bordeaux are members of Checkmate, so that immediately puts them where they are in the comics. Salvation, like I was telling you before we went live, is this 7-issue run from 2007 that has links to Darkseid and to Apocalypse and the New Gods. So there's lots of things that could come from that as well. I wonder whether some of that hyperbole is him getting caught up in the excitement of what comic book fans would get from it, which immediately forgets that there's this massive general audience that haven't read a 7-issue miniseries from 2007.
And he also knows where it's going, and we don't. As in plot to plot to plot. He knows. I mean, can I just say it? Let's switch the schedule around. We're gonna do final thoughts, then talk about the future of the DCU.
Oh, okay.
But we'll talk the future. We've got a lovely comment. I love your accents, by the way. It immediately makes you think you guys sound more profound. I got the greatest backhanded compliment of my life the other day on YouTube. I don't know if I told you. I don't mind saying stream. I got a comment saying I look like I should sound American, and I was like, thank you. Like, you went on probably. I'm not generalizing Americans, but I just took it as that common assumption of I know I don't look great, and I know that I can have awful opinions, but I think I took it as he probably thought I was going to just speak a load of utter shit, and it turned out I didn't. So I was very complimentary of that. If it wasn't meant as that, then you failed in the insult. And it's, if I'm totally honest, it's quite tough to not insult me because that sounds awful, but I enjoy finding new insults and being insulted in new ways. But that one sort of threw me like your rest. I was like, oh, it's a compliment, kinda. It's like you've been sort of slapped and
like
hugs.
A BBC news reader when if I go really posh, I get that I sound like I'm just like a BBC person. I have to start doing my ASMR voice.
I'm very monotonal. Like I remember the first ever time we did a video, and it was a podcast, it was audio. I listened to my voice back and I hated it. But I think do you find out that everyone goes through that?
Yeah, everyone goes through it at some point.
Now I have to edit like a shit ton of shorts, and I'm so used to my own voice now. Yeah. I even play it out loud downstairs if I'm not editing on the sofa and there's other people there, because I'm just past the point of caring. And I have to listen to it to do captions, which makes it worse because I'm like, whoa, there's some words, or I always used to get told at school, sorry to go on a tangent, I would write as I think, which, I mean, you know me, you probably know I write a lot of things when I'm thinking, and I don't really have a filter to an extent. But I remember at school when I'd write those essays, history GCSE, I got an A, so I'm allowed to say it. I rewrote half my essay because obviously flying through finished it with like an hour or two to go. I was like, I'm going to rewrite it word for word neatly because I'd write loads of things and scribble loads out. But yeah, I talk as I think and I write as I think. But I think sometimes it's the best way to do it. So if you're doing it, it's a bit more authentic. He said it's a compliment. We kind of took it as that. Let's talk DCU. So
Yep.
We did the big spoiler discussion Superman, and if you are new to the channel, anyone that's been commenting, I'm not just saying because it's one of our videos. We have a DCU playlist now. We have a Cinema Savvy DC logo, which you helped me. I was like, does this work to you as a DC fan? Like, you know how hard it was to actually make that logo? I'm not joking, by the way. I had to find a font that didn't work, and I have ever so slightly had to crop and shorten things down for it to function. You would not notice the amount of things I had to do. It did not take me as quick as I thought it would be just to put the CS.
And it looks great. I mean, when I first logged into the call, I didn't even realize for about 10 minutes that it didn't say DC.
And that's it. I think the blue circle's enough. But I'm excited for the DC. I'm allowed to say, like, we were really hyped with Superman. I know you are the DC guy, and everyone should follow you. Got your Comic Con in the link in the description below. And also, if you've got Neil's Instagram, he does all the fun DC events as well. So we find out everything through you, which is great. Superman, we spoke very positive about. Maybe 2 hours we went on that video. We're not going to do 2 hours today, but we'll probably get an hour and a half. Firstly, I want to say, financially, Superman, big success. I saw someone share a post saying it flopped. It didn't flop. It grossed 600 million plus on a 200 million budget, and the studio was hoping for 500 million. In the 2025 comic book era, to have outgrossed the 3 Marvel films for this year, quite impressive, if you don't mind me saying. Yes. And for the reboot nobody wanted and the hack James Gunn, and nobody cares about Superman in 2025. Sorry to do all the boring things, the hand gestures. It was successful with critics, it was successful with audiences, it was successful with fans. And it's safe to say that DC is moving in the right direction for the first time in, we could say, over a decade at this point, if I'm allowed to say that. I know you're far more...
In live action, I will add, because in comic books and in animation, they have always been far superior.
I'm kind of... that's what I was meant to say, like the universe-wise film and TV. And maybe not animated, because I know that animated films are very popular by their own right. But it seems like there's going to be an actual functioning cinematic universe, which is great, because... It seems we can never have two performing at the same time.
And multimedia as well, because we are talking like it. We have just shifted from film to TV, and we've shifted back again, and it's seamless. And
they haven't done a guess what, guys? You need to watch these 3 films and these 4 shows to watch next year. It's post Superman. We've had Peacemaker season 2. It's looking good, bruv, as the memes in London would say. Is it bruv they say or bruv? I don't know. I can't do it. But we have quite a few things coming up. We've got the Lanterns coming out early next year. I text you, like, I'm really excited. I think it's January. You're like, no, it's March, April. I was like,
I think it will be March, April, only so that it does the flip of what we've done from Superman into Peacemaker. I think we'll start Lanterns, Lanterns will end, and we'll basically go watch Supergirl like the following week. This is kind of it. DC seems like there's creatively, we know that Clayface is filming at the moment in England. It's primarily, that's due next September, I believe. Yep. They aren't rushing to greenlight everything and anything. They're not chucking 2 things in development at once. We know that Creature Commandos, now I've seen season 1. I loved Creature Commandos. I did a review on that. I actually recommend it to everyone. I remember we were at Skeleton Crew last year. You were telling me about this show, Creature Commandos, and I was like, starting the DCU with an animated show, and I was like really slowly looking down, and then it never got a release date here till like 6 months later. And I was just sort of sat there like, oh wow, I was so wrong not to watch this when it aired in America. I'm just going to say that. And now I think with Peacemaker, like the colleague I spoke about, a lot of people are watching Creature Commandos because they all thought GI Robot, but then you've got the fact that Rick Flag Senior is the main character. You've got Argus. You've got Connective Tissues. They're not doing too much, and we're in the earliest days still. So I'm not sitting here saying it's great, wow, Marvel's finito, bye-bye. But I am sitting here really excited about a big franchise that, hey, like, you know, we knew those comics were great when we were younger. Yeah. They haven't had the cinematic universe they should have had. And I say should have had,
not an entitlement, but a look at the quality of the history of this enterprise. Of course, they could have a coherent universe when the other franchise is doing a coherent universe. And it seems like we're getting there. I'm excited for Lanterns, and I'm someone that, okay, I've seen Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern film. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says, but it is bad. It's not the worst thing that ever existed bad.
Yeah.
It's just painfully boring. I'm so curious at the following projects, and I think where I'm trying to go with this is I think DC's took the right approach. It seems that storytelling is coming first, and there's a story forming. We don't know what that is. But should you know what that is after one film and one series? Probably not. Like, you go back to Avengers 1 and Thanos popped up. I'm not going to lie. I asked for them, who the hell is this guy?
Who's this?
And then you got, and I remember then they announced, yes, the next Avengers film is Ultron. I was like, why isn't Thanos being done? And that was a huge, people forget that. That was a big aggro when they announced it and it wasn't him straight away.
Yeah.
And then they got there and they organically got there. Obviously a bit of force, but they had time and quantity to do so. I think DC's, we know they're building up to things. We know eventually at some point in time it will lead to a Justice League film. I'm so glad that, guess what, guys? Superman was great. Here's the Justice League film in 2 years' time. Go. They're taking the time.
Yeah.
We know of characters we're likely to see in the coming years.
Don't rush.
Well, don't rush. This is it. Keep building project by project. I am sold on what is to come. I'm going to watch Lanterns. I'm going to watch Supergirl. I'm going to watch Creature Commando Season 2. I'm going to watch Clayface. I don't think anything's official after that. I am going to say, Man of Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, 2027.
I know I've not let you talk, and this is not your moment. This is you know far more about this than I ever will. Where do you not where do you think it's going? What do you think is going? Like, do you think it's going rather they took the right tone, they're doing it right?
Yeah.
Like, what's your thoughts behind the current DCU?
All right, so from the first moment of watching Creature Commandos, I feel like I had an idea not about story, but about the kind of world that James Gunn wanted to create, and people will discredit him for it because they feel like he pushes his politics on people. But if you go back to the opening moments of the first episode of Creature Commandos, you get Themyscira mentioned almost straight away, and then you find out that there's this group of men that are so against an island of powerful women that they've become an anti-Themyscirian terrorist group. And in that exact moment, in that like 30 seconds that we'd learned that, I thought, okay, you're telling me about a world that has politics similar to ours, where there is a right and a left, and there is a division, and there are ways to look at the world and ways to live in it. And then you come into Superman, and again, yeah, there are some racial themes there about how Lex Luthor is skeptical of aliens, and this idea that we're skeptical of metahumans because they're different, because they're potentially more powerful. We see them as a threat. And then I think you see that come back in Peacemaker with this idea that we're going to put metahuman threats on this planet so that they're out of the way. I think that I don't have a huge idea as to where we are going with the story, as to what villains we might get or what might end up being the culmination of this first chapter, this Gods and Monsters chapter. But I do think that we've got an incredibly rich world for stories to be born out of, which I think is possibly more exciting than being like, oh, I know that Brainiac's going to show up here and that's going to cause Wonder Woman and Batman to appear here and them come together. It's more like, okay, I think there's a really interesting world that these people can inhabit that has some real world politics and thought behind it and will be quite thought-provoking, but will also have these amazing characters in it as well. So I think he's doing it differently to Marvel, because that was more about, let's get this character, let's get this character, let's get this character, then let's do some big, flashy, fun stuff. And that worked so well for them. And it works really well for them in comics. DC comics are very different. They do tell much more emotional stories that tackle slightly more raw, emotional kind of material every now and then. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with either way or being a fan of either one. But I do feel like he is doing a very, very good job. And I said this the minute that Superman ended the first time I watched it. He is doing an incredible job of taking what is the essence of DC Comics and putting it on screen. like Marvel did the exact same thing. They took especially Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, they took the exact way that Marvel comics feel and stuck it on screen really well. And I feel like that's what they've lost a little bit of. They've kind of lost their identity. Whereas I feel like James Gunn has got a really tight grasp on the identity of DC.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think I want to sort of chuck in the DC stuff too. The fact that I don't want to sit here and make accusations, but not every studio would allow simultaneous universes to be occurring at the same time. There's a Batman Part 2 finally filming soon, spring. And we are sat there like, how many studios would have said, Mr. Reeves, your Batman's now in DCU, say no more, you're done. Or, sorry, Mr. Reeves, we're going to do a Batman now, we're cancelling yours.
Yeah.
The fact that they're allowing it, and okay, Batman's one of the very, very, very few characters you can run that story with. Probably Batman and Spider-Man are the only two I'd say you can do that to. That then adds excitement to the DC that, okay, I'm not desperate to know who the DCU Batman is. When it comes, great. We'll have two Batmen on the screen, but it'll be, by that point, I'm sure, very obvious of two different universes.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a couple more comments. He put, Wonder Woman in 2028, I'm calling it now. That could be a very safe bet. I know there's a lot of talk about casting.
Yeah, there's been a lot made of 2027. People thought that they were going to surprise announce a Wonder Woman film and have a Batman, a Superman, and a Wonder Woman all released in the same year, but I just don't think it's going to happen. We're not ready for that.
Not after they did that last time. Man of Tomorrow, if I just say it very briefly, about a week before it was official, there was a rumor like they might be fast-tracking a Superman sequel for July 9th, 2027. And everyone was laughing like, haha, no, that's ridiculous. And 1 week later, it's true. And by the way, that's my 31st birthday that film comes out, which is very depressing. It might get me out of a family wedding the day before, though, I've already decided.
And he'd already been writing it. He'd been writing it all this time.
This is it. And the last part, I was sure Brainiac was the villain Man of Tomorrow, but the Instruction of Salvation has me unsure, which is interesting. But then this is a great thing about TV edits. Game of Thrones verse owns the summer, no less than May. I agree. So House of the Dragon is going to be airing season 3 next summer. Nothing entirely at Warner Brothers as HBO will go up against that. I'm also going to add, I forgot what they're calling it, Duncan Eggs the books. They announced it yesterday, the air date January. 6 weeks, 6 episodes.
I forgot what it's called.
So I think there could be a Night of the Seven Realms or Kingdoms or something. My thoughts, why are they adapting 3 novellas into a series, man? Come on, just finish your bloody books. That's my thoughts on Game of Thrones, no offense, but I'm very excited for House of Dragon season 3. I reckon, Lanterns will be post night of what's called, but pre House of the Dragon. Yes, and pre Supergod, of course. So yeah, I think spring. I think March is a safe bet. March to April window, probably a safe bet. A little bit quieter. Slowly get back into blockbuster season. Drop your big expensive show. That's absolutely fine. So a lot of DCU chat there. I know we're doing Peacemaker, but you kind of want to have that chat with it.
Yeah.
But if we put it back to Peacemaker season 2, because I'm not really. I want to go. I don't want to go. The problem is we could talk for hours. Overall thoughts on Peacemaker season 2 for me. I thought it was better than season 1 if I want to play that card of what was better, what was not. As I mentioned, there's a couple of minor niggles I have with it. Mainly the puppeteering of Rick Flag at the end. But overall, as a season, I loved it. I think maybe without me generalizing the internet, if people are really good or angry after today, they took a bit of time. I think they'll probably relax a little bit over the coming days and weeks. And when they're looking back as a complete season 2's great. Yep. But they then in turn have to deliver with the follow-up. It was rumours Cena's going to be in Man of Tomorrow. He's probably going to be in Man of Tomorrow.
He's definitely in Man of Tomorrow.
Yeah, he is. It'll be a when, not if they officially put him in it. Right? Because they were doing all the drawings, weren't they? For I'm wondering if they'll do it after Cena's WWE stuff, because I think they're going to try and get the limelight on that. Not in a marketing way, but he's got 5 appearances left across the next 2 months. And I wonder if there will be things will go quiet. He'll be focusing on the wrestling stuff. Then we'll start to get more filming stuff from him next year. because it's obviously going to be a huge deal for him to step back from that career. But
you're going to
for me,
have Man of Tomorrow and Batman Part 2 filming at the same time.
Do you reckon they'll both shoot in England, or do you reckon Man of Tomorrow will be America?
It's
a great question.
I would imagine they'll go back to the same external locations and the same buildings that they used for Superman. So I would imagine a lot of it will be in the US.
Interesting. It's a very good point there, because DC's obviously getting a lot more studio space in Watford, at least, and as is Harry Potter for the commenters, House of the Dragon 2. I've got one last question. Were either of us expecting to keep just an episode 8?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we were. It was something we want to see tied up in the future. And he's just put his final thoughts for yours, Neil. I thought episode 8 was a good episode of Peacemaker, but an underwhelming finale. It felt like a semi-epilogue. The promise I never felt like we completed the climax. Good season, 7.5 to 8. I think that's very fair.
I think, and I actually like the idea of a finale being an epilogue, like
Game of Thrones used to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think, but it needed then to have tied up Keith more and not have left you feeling like he was going to immediately come back.
Yeah, give it a bit of time. It's as long as it gets paid off, I don't think there's a problem of getting a bit more time, because he might then have to start developing his own. How am I going to get there? How am I going to get to him? And that might be something that probably shouldn't be able to do overnight, because he didn't even know about the portal. Now I think about it.
Yes,
but interesting. But sorry, I jumped ahead. Your final thoughts on season 2?
Yeah, I also think I enjoyed it more than season 1, but I think it's because it's a very different beast. It's not the same thing. I thought we were going to get a very similar season, not like a carbon copy, but a very similar kind of storyline, and we would just kind of repeat the same thing. Which is terrible of me to think, considering how much I've just been talking about how great a writer James Gunn is. But I didn't think this season was going to be as different as it was, and I really appreciate that. Similar to as we were saying before, apart from feeling like a slight bit was missing in why Rick Flag became such a puppet, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a 4.5, 5 stars from me, but then when is DC not?
That's absolutely fair to say. Well, that is going to be
chill.
You're not a shill. I'll always maintain it. You know more about DC than anyone we know, and you don't do it to get things, unlike certain other platforms, or people on these platforms, I shall say. I have to keep my mouth sealed at the politics. But everybody watching at home, if you're not watching live, thank you for everyone that has been commenting live. We really do appreciate it. We get to chat a bit more because we get different opinions.
And I challenge you, people who are watching this video, whether you are watching it live and want to shout it quickly before we leave, or are watching it later, which other DC show was the town from Earth X in a DC show? Which other show was it in? Because it is very famously from another DC show. They shot in the exact same location.
I don't have the faintest clue. So
I don't think it's one you've seen.
Can I just guess Superman and Lois then?
Mm-mm.
Fair enough. I'm not going to guess anything else. There's too many DC shows. I would say Earth for Tomorrow on the basis it's time travel, but that also wouldn't make sense because it's not multiverse travel. But everyone, please answer Neil's question in the comments. We'll reply to them. We're doing something new with YouTube. They have a collaboration tab now, but it doesn't let us do it on live stream. So if you're watching from Get Your Comic On, hello and thank you. It does like a joint upload, which is lovely, which is great. You might be able to see a couple of other things. If we can add it, I know it lets us add it after it's aired or processed, one or the other. But please do comment your thoughts. If you're a fan of DC, I mentioned we've got a DCU playlist. It is in the link in the description. We've got the big Superman spoiler discussion that we did earlier this year. We went about 2 hours. So if you've liked this video tonight, you're new to the channel, you've liked Peacemaker, you want to see more of us two talking, you absolutely can. And Neil corrects me on everything from that opening weekend. He knew everything. There's a Creature Commandos Season 1 review as well. It's kind of it so far alongside the Peacemaker stuff. But obviously there will be more. It will be Lanterns. It will be Supergirl. We'll be able to actually have like an updated playlist as it does, which is why I wanted to do a logo. Can't do the intro. It's just they've done the most simplistic, great idea for an intro you can do. And I'm absolutely buzzing. It's like a 10-second intro. It's great. It's simple. It's effective. It's not another bloody let's recite the whole universe. That's become too much of a thing everywhere now. That's not a Marvel problem. That's an everyone else copying a Marvel problem.
Yeah.
But if you want to find out what else we're up to, It's London Film Festival at the moment, and I say we're very busy. There's one upload on the channel for Knives Out. We also had Tron come out this week. So spoiler-free reviews on Knives Out and Tron. There will be a wrestling spoiler discussion tomorrow after Crown Jewel for any wrestling fans. Maybe people love John Cena that much. They want to see John Cena versus AJ Styles. That's airing at 1 p.m. in the UK, which is beautiful because it's in Australia. We get it at human time.
Oh,
It's the Americans that are upset it's at 5 a.m, which well done, one a year that isn't at the great time.
It's always in their time zone, so they can suck it up for one.
And we're going to have a Tron Ares spoiler discussion, right? I hear the three people screaming of joy, one of them being Jared Leto. That's going to go up on Sunday. I'm going to record that tomorrow, I think. It's going to be a solo one. Tron Ares out in cinemas now. That's how I'm going to leave that. If you're a fan of Tron, there's a lot of good Tron stuff on our channel. But I'm going to be talking everything about Ares, the original concepts for Tron 3, you name it, it's going to be detailed. I'm going to talk about all of it. I'm going to give it credit where credit's due. At the same time, I'll be talking about stuff. I'll be going deep into Tron lore, which I've never been asked to do in my life until after the screening on Tuesday, which was kind of great too. And Hasbro has just announced they've got a Tron license this week. So straight away, there's a $260 Hasbro set, which doesn't have the rights of one character, which is kind of dumb, but okay. And they're doing a Tron Legacy wave, which is 6-inch Black Series, basically Star Wars, which could be very interesting. But yeah, Tron stuff, London Film Festival stuff, DC stuff, you name it. We've been very, very busy. Like other TV shows, we did Alien Earth a couple of weeks ago. I'm delighted to be away from TV for a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I always get worn out with shows happening at the same time weekly.
Yep.
As much as I like them, it's tiring. And that's me rounding out for this bit. When is the next live show? That says, oh, God. I mean, because of the festival, it would have normally been tomorrow for wrestling. It would have been Sunday for Tron. But because I'm going to be at London Film Festival, I do not know. There's going to be a lot of uploads across the next 2 weeks. But I don't know the next live stream. But if you do want to reply to any comment, you can. I do reply to comments. It's probably the best way to get responses. But Neil, though, because I'm going to hand over to you now, get your Comic-Con. What's next for you guys?
I'm having a mental blank. It's been a long week. So we're kind of in spooky season, so it's horror stuff at the moment. So we just had our review for VHS Halloween go out. Matt did a wonderful review for that. We've got some stuff coming up for Shelby Oaks, which is another horror, which is coming out in the UK quite soon. We are just planning for everything we want to tell you to watch for Halloween, which is always a fun time of year for us. Starting to think about stuff for next year, which means that I am basically in my head figuring out how I'm going to get in a room with Sarah Michelle Gellar for when Buffy comes back.
Is it filming now?
No, so they finished filming on their pilot episode. They're waiting for series order. So as soon as we get series order, I'm afraid if you work at Disney Plus in the UK, you're going to get inundated with emails from me. Other than that, usual stuff, loads of comic book reviews every single week. We're working out how to spread ourselves a bit across publishers because more publishers keep coming on board, which means I get sent more books every week and I feel more stressed about everything that I can't cover because we're now getting 70 books a week. And I'm like, I don't have the ability to read that much. But if you're a fan of DC Comics, we're talking a lot about DC KO at the moment, which is their brand new event storyline, which has just kicked off. It is major. It's this really cool storyline where heroes and villains from the DC universe are being paired up for wrestling matches, basically. And whoever is going to be the last man standing is going to get to save the entire universe or multiverse, even from Darkseid. That has just kicked off. I've had a little preview of what's to come from that in the future as well. So we're talking a lot about that at the moment too, which is really exciting.
Excellent. So everybody, please follow Get Comic-Con. It's a staple of our channel that we get to get you on. I'm glad we do the collaboration thing now because it's not an arrogant thing. We don't know what it does yet. It might not actually do anything, but it's nice to share the upload space, right? That you're a guest, but there's one of me. You're half of this video. It should be able to also go up.
Yeah, it's cool to be able to put it in front of both audiences and make sure that everyone gets to see it.
And I say fair play to YouTube. In a time where they get slated for a lot of things, and fairly so at times, if this is a long-term prospect, they'll develop great, because please let's go live and be able to have both of us on the same time.
That would be amazing.
Wonderful. But everybody watching at home, thank you all so much for commenting. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one.